Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are watching from today. Welcome to Alcohol Use, Nobody's Immune, a presentation by Kasey Grant. As the title suggests, we're going to be talking today about how alcohol use can affect anybody. So, a quick run through of the agenda here. First, we'll talk about how nobody is above the influence, then about how people of all ages drink, similar topics you see, and then comorbidities abound. And then lastly, we're going to touch quickly on just how there is still some work to do in the world of alcohol research. So, first, nobody is above the influence. We hear everybody talking about the influence all of the time, especially being above the influence, but what exactly is the influence? The influence is, in my opinion, what motivates binge drinking, which is positive outcomes. And these motives we have found actually transcend risk, which is the main issue and what causes binge drinking issues. A 2025 study by Ringwald et al. Studied 97 young adults, and it showed that things like injuries, aggression, drunk driving, even did not deter them from binge drinking because the possibility of feeling better about themselves or gaining social reward, having more fun, even beat the possibilities of all of those harms every time. So the real issue is that binge drinking uh, has the possibility of creating these positive affects for folks and all these rewards that everybody here, I believe, seeks all the time. So next, people of all ages drink. Speaking of nobody being above the influence, while binge drinking is, and alcohol misuse in general, is often attributed towards things like teens, college frat parties, young adults, things like that. There's actually a pretty interesting increase in the trend of elderly binge drinking in the United States. And we get this from a 2008 survey that was actually conducted by the Center for Disease Control, identified that roughly 10% of US citizens of age 65 or older are binge drinkers, which in this case means the consumption of five or more drinks on one occasion. Comorbidities abound. So aside from just everybody getting the same rewards, people of all ages wanting to drink, there are also people of all personality types and affect and diagnoses even that tend to fall victim to substance use. And it is the complexity of alcohol's pairing with other psychopathology that actually makes it so insidious because it really has some sort of relationship with every other type of psychopathology or personality trait. So, a 2025 study by Macaron et al. Actually proved that there are direct correlations between personality types and alcohol use disorders. They used a modified version of the Minnesota Multifaceted Personality Inventory, or MMPI, and they did full psychological batteries in tandem with that to determine, which is a fancy word for interviews, um, to determine that these different personality types can be associated with alcohol use disorder. Aside from just personality types, substance use is very heavily tied to trauma too, which a lot of folks have different variations of trauma. There's a study from Harvey et al. In 2025 that highlights that significant trauma is prevalent in nearly all substance use disorders or all cases of substance use disorder. And they further investigated that using CPTSD, which is complex PTSD symptom clusters, things like affect dysregulation, negative self-concept, and disturbances in relationships. So a lot of things that a lot of different folks can identify with. So we do have a lot of this interesting information that shows us all these different types of folks and likelihoods to use alcohol and things like that. But there's definitely some flaws in all the research of as which is no fault of the researchers. One is that the studies lack diversity. Um, so you don't have a lot of choice in who you can have access to when it comes to substance use disorders, especially folks that are already in treatment, right? It's either there's a stigma around it, people do not want to participate in treatment, or there is a lot of personal information that gets in the way. There's a lot of red tape kind of that you have to go through. So it's a little bit hard to get more diverse populations. And then that feeds into the second part here, which is just really small sample sizes, which also feeds into this last point here, and that's issues with self-reporting. A lot of the research on substance use disorder, alcohol use disorder, relies on folks to self-report, whether it be through surveys or even signing up for research participation. And because there's such a huge stigma on alcohol use and substance use in general, folks are a lot less likely to sign up for those to be participants. And even if they do sign up, you can't necessarily always rely on the fact that they're going to be honest about their use. So that was my quick little presentation. Appreciate you all. Thank you very much for coming.